A very good evening to all yogis. So this evening, I shall continue to discuss about the practice of Satipatthana meditations. Sometimes mindfulness meditators may practice with some mental defilements. For example, mindfulness meditators may have the idea that I who see the inside, or this is my inside, or I see the formation arising. Here is formation means mental and physical phenomena. The word sankhara has few meanings. The meaning depending on the context of using it. For example, in the teaching of Paticca Samuppada, the Buddha said, avidya paccaya sankhara, or ignorance conditioned the arising of the formations. So here, sankhara formations refer to volitional formations, or in those the karmic actions that condition the rebirth, or the arising of the consciousness of rebirth. But in the 5 aggregates of clinging, the 4th aggregate is a sankhara khanda, or aggregates of mental formation. So they are altogether 52 cetasika, or mental associates. But in the sankhara khanda consists only 50 cetasika. And the other 2 cetasikas, Vedana, feeling, sanya perceptions, are taken out as a two separate aggregates. But during the practice of Vipassana meditation, formations, sankhara, refer to the mental and physical phenomena that are conditioned. So, for example, yesterday we give the examples of the arising of the hearing consciousness. So, can the sota vijnana arise by itself? So, is arising dependent on the condition. So that's why it's known as conditioned phenomena. Then this conditioned phenomena can also condition another things to arise. So what's the thing that being conditioned by the arising? What's the thing that is conditioned by the hearing consciousness? Thinking or analyzing. How do you know that there's a arising of the hearing consciousness? So mindfulness or awareness. But to the worldling, would think that I hear it, or my ear hears it. So actually there's another consciousness arising, knowing this hearing consciousness. So from the context of mindfulness meditation, we say that there's arising of awareness or mindfulness, or sometimes we use the term noting mind, that aware or mindful of that hearing consciousness. So it is consciousness that is cognizing or knowing the hearing consciousness. So it is consciousness also conditioned or not conditioned. So it is consciousness now that cognizes or knows that there's a hearing consciousness, or sometimes we refer this consciousness as awareness or mindfulness now. So it is consciousness is conditioned or not conditioned or without condition. It's also conditioned. So that's why we say awareness or mindfulness, the arising of awareness or mindfulness dependent on another object or another phenomenon. So in brief, we can say that there's arising of another formation. But when the mindfulness and concentration are not strong enough, it's difficult to see the formation correctly. You may, at first you may have the idea that I'm watching or observing mindful of the movements of abdomen, pain, and so on. Then, as you make progress, then you may think that I could observe my mindfulness, or mindfulness has gone to the pain, or your mindfulness is noting the pain or noting the numbness and so on. So this idea I is there. So this idea I is known as false view or ditthi in the teachings of the Buddha. Is there an I watching your noting mind? Then who is watching your noting mind? Who is watching your noting mind? Or how does you know that your noting mind is or your mindfulness is observing the movement of abdomen, or your mindfulness is appear with the painful sensation and so on? Is another noting mind or another consciousness arising? Cognizes or knows the previous consciousness. In other words, the mindfulness, the mental state of mindfulness or the noting mind also can become an object for the next process of consciousness or the next process of mindfulness. So actually there's no I or self behind the noting mind. There's no I or self behind the arising of the insight knowledge. If a mindfulness meditators has the idea that I'm watching, I'm observing my insight knowledge, that insight knowledge actually is not valid. It's a not valid insight knowledge. So at the beginning of practice, your mindfulness or sometimes your experience of insight knowledge could be defiled. Sometimes your noting mind, mindfulness, or your insight knowledge could be defiled by conceit, or sometimes by wrong view. That's why in the Visuddhimagga, he says such insight knowledge is not valid. So in one of the commentaries, there's a discourse on the Noble One's heritage, explained clearly. He said that there's no removal of false view in one who thinks or take it task, or I see my insight. or my insight knowledge. So there's removal of false view or DT in the meditators who take the task only formations, see formation with insight, or comprehend, discern, and delimit them. In other words, formation, see formation, that means the object is also a formation. When you're mindful of hearing, that consciousness of hearing is one of the conditioned phenomena or sankhara. So there's no self or I observing or being mindful of that formation. There's that hearing consciousness. So formation, see formation here means because there's a consciousness, hearing consciousness arising, condition the arising of mindfulness or another consciousness that cognizes the hearing consciousness. So this is another process of formation. So when the commentaries say that formation, see formation with insight, it means at that time meditators realizes or discerns clearly the specific characteristics and the common characteristics of the formation. Formation here means the condition, phenomena, or mental and physical. So, in other words, there's no I or a self realizes the specific characteristics and the common characteristics of the mental and physical phenomena. Because the arising of that mindfulness or awareness is conditioned by the arising of that hearing consciousness. So there's no I or self watching that consciousness, the consciousness that cognize the hearing consciousness. Sometimes some meditators may say that there's a knowing mind watching the noting mind. The noting mind is observing the object. If that knowing mind is permanent watching the noting mind, then it's also not possible to remove this wrong view. So do you think that there's a permanent knowing mind? So there's no permanent knowing mind. So similarly, then the next point, there's no abolition of conceit in one of the meditators who take his task or who thinks in this way. I see thoroughly with insight. I see well with insight. So we can say that if mindfulness meditators do not practice correctly, then this feeling of pride or mana can arise, thinking that I have gained this insight knowledge, I have attained higher stage of insight knowledge than you, and so on. So similarly, the commentaries say that there's abolition of conceit in the meditators who thinks in this way or takes it task only formation, see formation with insight. So there's no I or self seeing the insight knowledge thoroughly or seeing very well. When mindfulness meditators are able to see the specific characteristics of the phenomena clearly, and then they could realize, for example, the instant arising and passing away of all the phenomena. Do you think that they can perceive or find a self or an I? There is no self. You cannot see a self or I in the conditioned phenomena, or that are arising and passing away very rapidly. So sometimes sometimes during the practice, meditators may also take delight in their insight knowledge. They may become so pleased with their insight knowledge. So the commentaries say there's no ending of attachment in the one who is very pleased with the insight, thinking that I'm able to see with insight. But there is ending of attachment in one. One means the meditators who take his task only formation, see formation with insight, or comprehend, discern, and delimit them. That means seeing clearly mental and physical phenomena as they really are. So during the practice of mindfulness meditation, if you are very concerned of your practice or your experiences, then you could not really develop your mindfulness well. So if meditators are very concerned whether one has gained sharper mindfulness or deeper concentration, or whether I have seen the movements clearly or not, then at the times they cannot develop bare awareness or mindfulness well. So in other words, due to this idea due to this idea so the idea gives rise to desires, or to desires to get some results from the practice and so on. So it is important that meditators just be mindful and note continuously from one movement to next movement, from one phenomenon to next phenomenon. So they do not analyze the object. They do not analyze the experience. So if meditators could realize that the formations are not self, then they're able to remove the false view or the wrong view. So here, not self means we cannot exercise control over them, or the commentaries say, in the sense of no power being exercisable over them. For example, when the conditions are met, when there's a sound, there's a space, and the ear is endowed with sensitivity. So when all these conditions are met, are you able to prevent the arising of the hearing consciousness? So when all these conditions are met, then the hearing consciousness, the consciousness will arise, perceive that sound. So this consciousness is known as hearing consciousness. So this consciousness, subject to passing away, in other words, impermanent, and as explained in the commentary, the impermanent means in the sense of non-existence after having come to be. Then they are painful or dukkha in the sense of oppressions by the instant arising and passing away. In other words, when one of the common characteristics is realized, then the other two characteristics are also realized at the same time. So, in other words, it is not possible to say that one realizes the nature of impermanent, but not yet realize or see the other two characteristics. So, the commentaries explain further. There's abolition of conceit. If one see that the formation is not permanent, or the formations are impermanent. So conceit means here DT, conceit. There's the abolition of conceit if one sees that the formation were not permanent or in this impermanent. So similarly, when one realizes impermanent in the sense of non-existence after having come to be, they also realize dukkha and anatta. So as long as meditators could not see or realize the instant arising and passing away the phenomena and see them constantly, then they cannot realize dukkha. For example, mindfulness meditators mindful and note pain. Sometimes they have to note mindful and note the pain many times, or sometimes more than a few minutes. Then they only realize the painful sensation is subsiding, and then finally disappear. So meditators also realize the nature impermanent of that pain, but not thoroughly. But when mindfulness meditators are able to mindful and note pain, then that painful sensation pass away instantly. Then another pain arising, meditators note it. That pain also disappear instantly. Then another object rising, meditators mindful note it. It also disappear instantly. Then meditators see or realize impermanent clearly. Then when the mindfulness is sharp enough, meditators also realize that mental process of mindfulness or the noting mind is also arising and passing away very instantly with the object. So in that way, meditators come to realize dukkha. So in other words, mindfulness meditators have to realize sankhara dukkha, or suffering due to formations. So in the way, meditators would realize that they are painful, or that they are not pleasant. So in that way, there is ending of attachment. If meditators take this conditioned phenomena as presence, then they could not overcome their attachments. So in order to overcome these defilements, the false view or conceit and attachment. Meditators have to develop mindfulness constantly, continuously, and attain deeper and deeper concentration. So when there's deeper and deeper concentration, the experiences also becomes clearer and last longer. Meditators may gain some insight knowledge during the practice, either during walking meditation, sitting meditation, or sometimes in the mindfulness of daily duties. But sometimes the experience of the insight does not last long. Sometimes due to drop of effort, that experience may disappear. Or sometimes when meditators have a lot of theoretical knowledge, then they may realize that experience and started to think about it. Then it causes disruptions to the mindfulness. So it's sometimes difficult to overcome that idea of I, or feeling of I, doing the practice, and so on. So how do you know this experience, insight, knowledge? When we say that there's no self of knowing this insight knowledge, or there's no I watching this insight knowledge. But if you understand the teaching, you may have some knowledge or idea about it. If the experience of insight is very clear, it will stay in your mind. So if the clear experience of insight stay in your mind, do you think you can forget? So after meditations, you may able to reflect back on, come to know what happened. But at the moment of practicing, you're always very concerned about your experience, your insight knowledge. Then it's not possible to get a right knowledge, right insight knowledge. So we always emphasize that mindfulness meditations is beyond thinking, analyzing, or conceptualizing the experience, or applying any preconceptions or preconceived ideas into the practice. So meditators pay bare attention, or merely be mindful of every object or every phenomenon as it duly occurs.
สิ่งที่เราต้องทำก็คือสักแต่นะคะสักแต่กำหนดรู้
They do not have to think that this is wind element or earth element and so on. They do not even conceptualize that this object also not permanent or has the nature of no self and so on. This is a concept. That's why the Buddha said we have to realize the Dharma, or the Dharma here means the phenomena by direct experience or personal experience. So when one could realize the specific characteristics and the common characteristics of the mental and physical phenomena through direct experience, then meditators will gain insight knowledge. So meditators see the true nature of every object, every phenomenon, either mental phenomenon or physical phenomenon clearly. The consciousness that are cognizing or knows the object or phenomena, also free from these defilements. So, in other words, the commentary also explains in another way. So, in other words, when one could see clearly the specific characteristics and the common characteristics of mental and physical phenomena clearly, then one realizes that there's no self, there's no I over this phenomena. So when the meditators discerns or see this phenomena, with that consciousness that is free from the perception of self, in that way the false view cannot arise. So in other words, if one has the idea that I am watching this phenomena, so at that time one is not free from this DT or wrong view. But when one realizes all the phenomena are without self or no self, so that consciousness is free from this wrong view or false view or DT. So in other words, that consciousness or mindfulness free from false view or wrong view. So when that consciousness or mindfulness free from false view and wrong view, and when that mindfulness or consciousness are watching or discerning the formations, means the phenomena, then this called mana cannot arise. So this DT can give rise to mana. Mana means I or an ego, or practicing the meditation or gaining various stages of insight knowledge and so on. So if the mind at the time free from this what called mana, then this when one is observing or watching the formations, means the phenomena, then the craving also cannot arise. So when there's no craving, then that mindfulness, that consciousness also free from attachments. So in other words, the insight knowledge is purified or free from these defilements. So it means the false view or wrong view, conceit or mana, and attachments. In other words, if there's no false view arising during the practice, then definitely there's no mana, conceit, and there's no attachments. So during the practice, you also have to be mindful of the feeling of I directing the mind, or this I watching the phenomena and so on. Sometimes meditators may have the intention, for example, to check the movements of abdomens, then they should be mindful of that intention or desire. For example, some meditators mindful of sitting, touching, mindful of that way in for about 1 or 2 rounds or 3 rounds. Then they purposely bring back the mindfulness to check the abdomen, whether the movement is clear or not clear. Actually, it's not really encouraged that meditators should intentionally or purposely come back to the movements of abdomen. If the movements of abdomen becomes clear, the mind here means the mindfulness would would definitely conscious or notice that movements. Then meditators should be quick enough and note that movement if the movement is clear. Sometimes meditators mindful of an object. For example, pain, and the painful sensation keeps going. The meditators want to come back to the basic object again. If they realize there's an intention of wanting to come back, they should note the intending mind, or the intending or wanting. They only mindful of the next thing. So when you can take that intention as an object of mindfulness meditation, gradually you could overcome this idea of I, or I directing the mind, or I want the mindfulness to go to that object, and so on. And it's also important to mindful and note the analytical mind. Analytical mind means sometimes meditators analyze the practice or the experience. So sometimes meditators conscious of the experience. For example, they may sometimes they have a new experience. Then the mind suddenly realize, oh, I have this new experience. Actually, this is a form of thinking as well. If they do not mindful and know it, then sometimes the mindfulness will be distracted or wandering away. So sometimes meditators did not realize that there are many thinking arising for a short moment. The thinking also includes comparing, making comparisons of the experience. Sometimes meditators realize that the movements arising is longer than previous one, or the movements of rising falling is clearer than the previous sitting, and so on. So meditators may not realize that this is a short process of thinking and arising now and then. Meditators need not have to purposely, for example, analyze the processes of rising movements. For example, the movements is getting faster or shorter, and so on. If the experience is very clear, that experience also will stay in your mind. So at the end of sitting meditation, or at the end of the day, you may able, if you wish to recall your experience, then that experience will appear in your mind. But usually in the intensive retreats, we do not always recollect our experience or practice. If meditators review their practice throughout the day, or recollect their experience that they have throughout the day, that reviewing or recollections causes disruptions to the mindfulness. So mindfulness, in the way when the mindfulness interrupted, then the strength of the mindfulness also will be subsiding. So it's better that you ensure that your mindfulness becomes constant and continuous. In other words, it's better to ensure that the momentum of the practice or the momentum of mindfulness is not disrupted. So in that way, meditators may be able to gain more experiences when the mindfulness is not disrupted or interrupted. So commentaries also explains various similes about no self. So one of the simile, he said that you cannot step twice in the same river. The fresh water are ever flowing in upon you. Then how about the man who stepped on the river water? How about the man who stepped on the river water? Do you think the man remained the same all the time? So if we see from the point of Vipassana, the same man cannot step twice in the same river, because the same man composed of mind and body, or namarupa. So as you know, the namarupa never remain the same for the two consecutive moments. So in other words, there is no permanent I or person. For example, there is no permanent I or person observing or mindful of the phenomena. There is no permanent mind watching or mindful of different phenomena, because both are conditioned. So as you know, whatever conditioned, their arising also subject to passing away. So when you are able to realize the specific characteristics and common characteristics of the mental and physical phenomena better and better, then you realize that everything is without self, not permanent, and is oppressing. You realize that the practice of insight meditation is free from this, free from the false view or the wrong view, free from conceit or mana, or free from craving or attachments. Then in that way you would attain higher and higher stages of experiences until you realize the supramundane wisdoms of Lokutara Panya. So I wish every meditators always put forth effort to develop bare awareness of pure mindfulness constantly, continuously, so that you could gain deeper concentration and clear insight knowledge, and finally remove or overcome all the mental defilements completely.
สาธุ สาธุ สาธุ